Okay, and I'm also just going to share my screen so that we will all be looking at the same thing together. Okay, hopefully that's worked for everyone. I'm conscious that my lighting isn't great, but there we go. We'll manage. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. This is our debut community meetup. Of course, we're doing it virtually, and we'll be talking a little bit about that. I'm personally thrilled to have Michael here, who works with me and Flux in a business ethics capacity. And he's joining us, the founder of Responsible 100, which a few of you will know more about already. And given the crisis that we're faced with at the moment, he's really going to be bringing some brilliant insights, but also really involving us all to collaborate and to explore some insights together. I suppose to open up with some context as well, the purpose for this community meetup as a series is really twofold. On the one hand, I feel as though I have limited opportunities to interact with other sort of outliers, if you like, curious and creative people that are interested in contributing to this business for good movement, and really see themselves as business activists, really. And for an opportunity to have a sense of belonging, to really sit with complex problems long enough. Somebody actually is joining, sorry. Hi Rob, we've just started, just to let you know. So as I was saying, the purpose of the space is really to create an opportunity for outliers to come together to creatively look at complex problems that we're seeing today in our working world, but also to mobilise our growing community. So the business is just over a year old, Flux, and I've been working hard at going out to meet people, and we've been growing a really great community. So it's an opportunity to really come together, to mobilise the energy that we share, and to really accelerate business for good opportunities. As for what we do at Flux, a lot of you that are on the call will know already, but some of you won't. So really what Flux is all about, we invest in building and sharing pioneering insight. So we work with different research teams and academics to really ensure that we're building insights that are going to support organisations to make the right ethical decisions. And also we design and deliver the training that is needed to go alongside that to continually adapt today. Because of course, if we have just simply insights, and I think a lot of the time leaders are experiencing an overwhelm of insight and information, but actually we need to be able to develop that into something that people can actually go ahead and use. So it's really the know-how that's missing a lot of the time as to how to implement that within the nuances of that particular business and those particular challenges for that leader. So that's really what we do, is we bring those two elements together and work with people in that way. We're essentially in business to improve the state of our working world, and we do that with a firm focus on social mobility. So a little bit about my background is that I have always, through my adult life, volunteered in some capacity, mostly with young people. So for a while I was working with Bernardo's and CAMS, working with young people with mental health difficulties. But really what I wanted to do was bring together my focus on volunteering and working with others in domains where there is less access to resources, with my commercial background, and I have in the past built and sold a business. So I wanted to bring those two things together, and that's really what Flux is about. So it's a social enterprise, and we have a firm focus on social mobility to really focus on achieving equitable working futures for all. At the moment, we're actually really in a great place. I'm really excited to say that we've been building a partnership with Trailblazers, which is a mentoring and coaching charity that work in prisons in the UK. So really what we're doing there is supporting socially excluded young men, in particular in Aylesbury Young Offenders Institution, which is near me at home, where I'm calling from, and really working with them to catalyse a sense of entrepreneurialism and opportunity in them. So that's really exciting, and we do that through a partnership with Trailblazers, but also with the commercial and corporate clients that we work with. For every program that we deliver, we actually pay one forward to a socially excluded individual. So that's part of the work that we're doing. Who is here today? So of course you're all here. This isn't just about myself and Michael, and I would love to look at including us all at the beginning of this, and appreciating that we are absolutely all in this together. And as much as we might be looking at, we will be looking at some business behaviours and challenges that we're seeing, we are all in this together. And of course there are pressures and challenges on different people to make different decisions, but we're here to support them to make better, more ethical ones. And to do that sort of practice, to join in a space where we feel all comfortable working together on this topic, I'd like to invite us to open up the chat feed and share, I suppose, our intentions for what we want to do together on this community meetup. So what maybe 2 things that we will bring to the meetup and 1 thing that we won't. So I'm going to kind of leave that there on the screen and invite you to all open up your web chat and just share 2 intentions that you want to bring into the space, whether that's in contributions or in how you listen or whatever, and also 1 thing that you won't. So I'll just pause there and give us an opportunity to share that.
We'll get labels. We don't have to put our names in and then a colon and then type, do we?
I don't think so. I think the names will come up anyhow. So yeah, you can just free type. The first activity seems to be going well. I can see everyone's responses. I hope everyone, I should have maybe mentioned that you can choose to select everyone, so everyone will see this chat. So hopefully that's what's happening as a default, and you can all see what everybody else's contributions are. I can see Amelia's got some wine. Amazing. I'll just wait another minute. I think there's a few more coming through. Someone's just joined, I think, Pete. Just let you know, you'll be on mute automatically as you arrive, but we are just in the process of completing this challenge that's on the screen. So using your web chat, if you want. Oh, hi. You can add 2 things that you are going to bring into the space that we're creating in terms of the community online today, and 1 thing that you won't. So you're welcome to do that if you want to in the web chat. Hi Sophie, I've just seen that you've joined. You'll be on mute as you've arrived, or perhaps not. Welcome. Okay, right, let's continue. So thank you very much everybody for sharing. Hopefully that's sort of created the space that we would like to create together. To share a little more then about who's hosting today, obviously you've been hearing a bit from me already, and also Michael will be sharing his wisdom and inviting us to collaborate on something together. So I'm a curious entrepreneur. I founded Flux to radically improve the state of our working world. It's ambitious, I know. I also thrive solving complex human problems with others. So really this is an opportunity for me to live out an exercise that I love to do, so working with you all. And I'm dyslexic, which is a fun fact about me. It means that hopefully the presentation and the slides is also supportive to those with neurodiversity. And yeah, that's something that you're very welcome to know about me from the beginning. Michael will share a bit more about his background. But for now, we've just called out a few kind of highlight points, I suppose. Also to let you know that these are our Twitter handles. If you wanted to tweet anything or to follow us on there, you can do. So Michael, amongst many other things, has worked as a corporate business ethics advisor for 18 years. He also shares Extinction Rebellion's view about climate action and its urgency. And he founded, more recently, Responsible 100 to use responsibility as a profit driver for organisations. And he'll tell us a lot more about that.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Shall we switch over and see if I can share my screen now?
Of course, yeah. I'm just going to stop sharing, see if that works.
Is that a similar place to where we were?
Yeah, I think so. So if you want to, yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for everything, really, Lucy. It's great to have met you and to be collaborating with you. I think it's some way less than a year. We've perhaps been in discussion with each other for about 6 months or so, and it's been a pleasure for me, and a huge admiration for what you've done and what you're doing. And Flux and that big ambition was extremely attractive to me. I'm very interested in business. I'm very interested in business success, and I'm also very persuaded by Extinction Rebellion, as gone into that little bit of bio there. Yeah, this is kind of a strange 18 years. A strange 18 years. It's a strange lead up to those 18 years. I did a little bit of art college. I did travel, managed to get around the world, and have wonderful adventures in India, and worked as a cycle courier in Sydney, Australia for a year. I had a fantastic time doing that. Went to America and cycled around America, did great cycle tours. Got some stuff out of my system, ready to do an academic degree. Ended up doing finance and economics in Manchester. Did a little bit of banking after that. Graduated at 28. Just enough for me to realise that that's not what I wanted to do, and I ended up in financial publishing, and from there I quite quickly was asked to get involved in CSR. So it was many adventures had in those sort of first 28, 29 years or so, and somewhat by accident I was in a financial publishing company in Fleet Street, and they asked me to look at the idea for creating a new CSR journal or a CSR website. And that was about the same time that Ethical Corporation started, and they're still going. I think they may have been bought by Thomson Reuters recently. But it was sort of the dawn of CSR as a thing, and ESG as a thing, and helping businesses to do that. So that's just a little bit about me. I was explaining to Lucy that I recently went to France for a 5-day trip with some friends, and was admonished by half of the group for getting on a plane to go there and back, when there was a car ferry option that was much better for the environment, and I got a lot of stick for it. And Lucy encouraged me to share that story, and just to explain, it's because I've been working for 18 years in responsible business doesn't mean I say I'm the most sort of conscientious consumer. I have worked for all sorts of organisations doing great things in that space, and I think this is a really powerful and important thing to do. I'm super fallible and do not lead by example in my personal life, yes, mea culpa in that respect. So without setting the scene a little bit, where I've got to, where we are is in a position where we're saying, we want to help your business, and we'd like to work with any business. We'd like you to help you to be a better business and a more responsible business and a more profitable business as a result of those things. 18 years ago, I didn't really know anything at all about CSR. I knew a little bit about publishing, and I was excited about the opportunity to create this new brand for this publishing company. But I struggled with these images. These are somehow the enduring images of responsible business. Somebody cradling a sapling. I don't quite know why, but it still endures. And a consultancy called ROI have just published a great paper about images and words and phraseology in CSR, responsible business communication. And they found all these same images 18 years later. It's kind of depressing. It was depressing then, it was confusing then. And what struck me was that this didn't equate with responsible business for me. When I researched the opportunity, I realized that this is more how I was experiencing the stuff. I was realizing these big banks and these big oil companies wanted to make these fantastic claims about how responsible they were, but where the evidence is to the contrary, and hence this sort of idea of the fat cat with the money not paying any tax, making all these claims. That's really where we started 18 years ago. I think that makes people incredulous. I think that makes people distrustful of business. I think that's a big problem. If you claim to be responsible, and we can see that, for example, you're putting your Volkswagen and you're leading in the sustainability rankings with Dow Jones, and then you're found to have put cheap devices in 11 million cars to cheat emissions tests. This is the sort of thing that just breaks trust. And I think for a lot of people, they have a dim view of business and business's willingness and ability to be responsible in any way. I suggest that's a problem for us all in many respects. So here we are. This is what we found. The average CSR reports 18 years ago, businesses talking about their positive impacts on people and planet and using that imagery. And really what it seemed to be the case was, yes, they do have positive impacts on various different things, but they also have a number of negative impacts, and those negative impacts appear to have greater magnitude than the positive impacts. Businesses appear to be net negative in their impacts on people and planet, despite the glossy CSR reporting. It also struck me that there are incredible pressures on businesses to compete in a race to the bottom. It is legal to offload costs onto people and planet. It's customary. That's how we do things. There are regulation that talks about limits to environmental pollutions, and of course with carbon we've been focused on that for a long time, but we can still pollute in all sorts of different ways, and we can offload costs on the people and planet and exploit. We can hire vulnerable people, people in poverty, and we can put them onto zero-hour contracts, and that's for me exploitation. But the thing is, if it's legal or customary, or your competitor is doing it, and you're worried that your competitor is going to be able to reduce cost and steal your market share, and therefore the sense is that if you don't do those things, you're going to lose out, eventually go out of business, and your less scrupulous competitors are going to be the ones that succeed. So it's difficult to be more responsible and to reduce impacts on people and planet if it costs more to do that, and if you don't get recognized by consumers or investors, because as I've already said, there's a lot of cynicism and distrust of business, and we're not really sure of the claims that they make. So let's accept that there are these pressures, and it's a problem for business, but it's a problem for all of us. As I say, I think there's a sense that people think there is no such thing as a responsible business. I think there's a sense that a lot of people feel, what choice do I have? I need to buy food and drink. I need to have clothes on my back. I need to have a roof over my head. I've got to buy them from the man whose operations are actually, despite what they're claiming, having a dreadful impact on the environment, and we're all competing in the race to the top. What can I do about it? So I've done some CSR type work for many years with many different businesses. And sometimes it's felt quite radical and quite exciting, and sometimes it's felt a little bit too safe. Always to make it as risky and to provoke and challenge as much as possible. Every time we did an event, I started off with this sort of summary of, or this sort of view of the world, and challenge the businesses that we're working with on that day not to be complacent about doing some good work today, and then having fixed things for themselves, for their business or for wider society. I wanted to challenge businesses to own some of these issues. So we've got to, as I said, that first slide, we've got to a place where we're seeking to help businesses, and we were seeking to make their commitment, their ability to improve their social, environmental, ethical governance performance a driver of success. This is a snap of the current website, and there's more information like that there, which includes a summary of the sort of work that we do. We'll help you work out which of the issues are most important. We'll help you work out how you currently perform, and we'll do a deeper dive in those places where you need additional help. This is the work that we've been doing, and events and our roundtables in particular have formed a really important part of that work in recent years. Here are some of the 550 almost organisations that have been through our roundtables, some of the world's biggest businesses, and here are some of the NGOs and campaign groups that have been critical friends and have come into the space to hold businesses to account, to challenge them, encourage them, cajole them, partner with them, to share responsibility for moving the needle and getting better corporate performance on this wide range of different issues that we've looked at. 57 roundtables. This is a boardroom with our big clients, and we have found that bringing the group head of tax for a big bank together with the tax campaigners from Oxfam and Christian Aid and Action Aid and the people that run the Fair Tax Mark and Tax Justice Network was exciting in all sorts of ways, and it was useful and interesting, and not least because the two sides often found that they had so much more in common with each other than they would ever thought, and both sides seem to understand each other better and respect each other's skills and experience and expertise, and good relationships were formed, sometimes unexpectedly, by bringing people together to examine these different issues. So as I've alluded to, sometimes it feels like we're doing things that are a little bit too safe. Sometimes doing CSR well, albeit by some other means, is what we've been doing, and often it felt like there is not enough change here. We're stuck in this business as usual, with this offloading of costs, the lack of trust between the consumer and the employee and the business, the investor. Over the years, these concerns have become heightened. And I think in the last year, Greta and Extinction Rebellion have changed their tone and raised the debate and raised the intensity and the focus on some of these huge issues that we face. Huge respect for that young girl and for that organisation for doing that. And of course, in the last couple of weeks, the last month or so, things have changed again, manyfold greater change. I don't think there's any doubt with several magnitudes of order, greater change occurring right now as a result of the pandemic. As illustrated in some of these images. I was listening to one of the Extinction Rebellion's spokesmen, Paddy Lohman. I don't know if Paddy's on the call now. He was planning to sign up, and he spoke a couple of weeks ago at an event that I was at, and he presented this slide, which I like very much, and I have borrowed these couple of slides with his permission. I found that was a very sort of poignant way of presenting some of the situations, some of the problems that we're currently facing. And I was very persuaded by Paddy that they are all linked and that they are symptoms of the failing system. So what are the workable solutions that will enable us to fix these? I feel that it's important to be political. I feel that more than ever, it's important for businesses to differentiate as those that take this stuff seriously. I've found that more and more businesses will admit that they are persuaded by Extinction Rebellion and want to know what to do, want to know how to be on the right side of this, which is encouraging. I think even in some of the biggest businesses, some of the most conservative sectors, we're finding that, that the penny is dropping. What we should do about it is not as obvious. And Extinction Rebellion have said on a number of occasions, when we get to that point where we're persuaded, we're asked by people what it is we should do, it's not always clear, simple, straightforward what it is that we can do, what it is that we can change. Responsible 100 does have an idea, a suggestion, and we're going to run through that in the next couple of slides. I think the word manifesto here in this slide and the next couple of slides is about this idea of owning some of the problem, and while not having to take sole responsibility for the state that we're in, having some accepting some responsibility to be part of the solution, I think, is a reasonable expectation of business. And when I talk about manifesto, purpose, I think now the time is right to say to businesses, even though you don't know what all the answers are, what all the steps are, you know you need to change. Will you step into this light? Will you step into this space and say, I get that there's a distrust of business. I get that that it's a problem that when we invest in being a more responsible business, when we improve our environmental performance, when we increase diversity inclusion in our workplace, when we improve the mental health and well-being of our employees, that may be the right thing to do, but we don't always get recognised and for that and rewarded for that. And if we could be identified and we could be supported as a business that does really care about this stuff and want to be as responsible as we can across our organisation, that would be enormously powerful for our investment in being more responsible to translate into greater business success. So I'm one of the main points, one of my main ideas, propositions is that responsibility has to drive profitability. A lack of responsibility must diminish it. This is where we need to get to see businesses pile in and realise their huge potential to make the world a better place. I like businesses to say we should be competing in a race to the top. It's not a race that anybody has to win. It's a race that everybody should be competing in. Can we get the product and service out the door at the right price and quality? We're a business, that's what we need to be doing. And also increase our positive impacts on people and planet and decrease our negative impacts on people and planet. Can we become more net positive in our operations in the course of delivering these goods and services? Again, these are some of the things which I think, for the last 18 years, I thought this is reasonable. For the last year, I thought it was even more reasonable. And then in the last few weeks, it just seems to be more reasonable still. What sort of businesses do we want? What sort of purpose does the business want to set itself? I'm suggesting that serving people and planet, helping everyone live better lives in a better world is what true responsibility is. So to get down to the brass tacks, to get down to the work that we do, we have a simple ask, and we are helping businesses to do this. Benchmark your performance on all the social, environmental, and ethical and governance issues that matter. This is a summary of performance benchmarking of a particular large business on 6 different issues: supporting local economies, reducing social exclusion, managing waste, lobbying and influence, charitable giving, reducing inequality. I hope people can see that on their screens. I'm not sure about the legibility, but This particular business was found by its critical friends, by other businesses, and by NGOs and campaign groups and academics and investors and consultants, etc., to be okay on 2 of those 6 issues, and good on 3 of the 6, and excellent on 1. We were then in a position to say to that business, well, are you going to get from okay to good on supporting local economies or lobbying influence? Or are you going to start assessing your performance on other important issues first? And we tend to say keep assessing until you find something that's important to your business where you're poor. If you're poor on something that matters, that's where you need to start working first. But we have this approach. All the social, environmental, and ethical issues matter. You can't cherry pick 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 and say this is the lens through which we're going to report on our impacts. This is the sum total of how we're responsible. This is the sum total of how we're ethical, and ignore all those other issues because you don't have a story to tell, or because it's complicated, or because you have a very aggressive strategy in terms of tax and not paying tax. If that is the case, you can't choose 5 or 10 issues that you're going to talk about as the evidence of you being responsible. You need to look at all these issues, and we'll look at them with you in this way. Just a little bit of detail of one of the scorecards, mental health and wellbeing in the workplace. Our scorecards describe poor, okay, good, and excellent standards of policy and practice. And this is from our scorecard on mental health and wellbeing. And these are the statements that describe poor, okay, good, and excellent. So excellent is described as promoting mental health and wellbeing. It's fundamental to our workplace. A holistic approach is taken, which includes policies and tools to identify, address, and prevent mental health caused or worsened by work. We have been challenged on that and asked to take a broader view in terms of mental health, whether or not it's caused or worsened by work. It's been suggested to us that we perhaps should lose 6 words at the end of that description for excellent, which I think is a fair criticism. That's just wanted to explain that this is work in progress, always work in progress, getting more and more people and more organizations to examine these issues, to think about what they're doing, to describe the policies and practices that they are pursuing, and to identify improvements that they can make to move up through the scorecard. So the scorecards have these 4 scores and descriptions of those scores. And if we look more closely, to receive a score of good on mental health and well-being, we've listed a number of policies and practices that you'd expect the business to pursue. These are not checklists. You don't need to see all of these things, and I don't want you to attempt to read all this. It's just to give you some sense of the detail. The group exercise that we're going to do in a couple of minutes is about picking out, or like seeking to identify some of the things that businesses are doing in response to COVID-19. Examples I'd like you to look at, I'd like to think about now, if you can, examples of the things that businesses are doing that are poor or okay or good or excellent in response to the COVID crisis. Because it's those examples, real life examples, that we want to collect and we want to talk about and understand, and then we want to put them into that one of those 4 buckets: poor, okay, good, and excellent. And the more examples we have, the better informed the scorecard becomes, and the more useful it is, and the more accurate it can be in terms of defining and describing these 4 different standards. So this was the description of poor, okay, good, and excellent. For good, we had business demonstrates a commitment to promoting mental health and well-being with clear practices and policies in place to address multiple factors. And some of the examples for good for mental health and well-being are here, and we often group them into categories like culture and training and communication. And monitoring and measuring. So, as I said, I didn't want you to read all that, just to have some idea of the anatomy of the scorecard, because we're going to create a new scorecard in a moment. I am going to just check the time. Are we doing okay for time, Lucy? Are you there?
Yes, I am here. We are, and we're actually 5 minutes early or roundabout. So yeah, continue as you are.
Um, so Lucy and I have a deal. We have decided that we can help each other, and we should help each other. We are helping each other, and I'm delighted to be working with Flux about how Responsible 100 operates and some of the challenges that we have. And I, in return, am helping Flux to think about the social, environmental, and ethical issues that affect them and how they perform and where resource and attention and effort should be focused. And we have made a start. We have done 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours worth of work, and we've made a decent start, and I can summarize some of that to you now, and I will. I'd like to explain that this is work in progress, and we're early on in this process of helping Flux to think about these different issues and think about how it performs. It really only takes a matter of sort of 5 or 10 minutes to go through the 58 issues that we currently look at across the 8 different categories: community, environment, ethical choices, finance and governance, human rights, marketplace ethics, technology and workforce. I should add, ethical choices is sort of a hodgepodge of issues that don't really fit into the more defined other categories, and there's a sort of wide range of different issues there, from sharing economy to testing on animals to charitable giving, controversial weapons. The other 7 categories are a little bit more defined than ethical choices. But there are 58 issues. It really didn't take very long at all. It's really a matter of 10 minutes or so to present all these to Lucy and for her to suggest how important she thought they were for her. Doing a little bit of assessment with that result and showing her how her views about these issues compare to an average view or a benchmark view, and debating that a little bit, we came up with this. And that is a sense of what the most important issues are and what the less important issues are. So Flux is a small business and a new business, and it doesn't have the exposure to these 58 issues that a big bank or a big insurance company or a big manufacturing company would have. A big anything is going to have more exposure to more of these issues. So bear in mind that this chart, when organized into priority from left to right, shows you that there are 6 different issues that we think are top priorities for Flux, the things that Flux believes it should be talking about and being able to explain itself. Now, there are 3 other issues that Lucy and I think should be perhaps discussed, disclosed on, examined, presented next, and they're marked out in the lighter pink colour. And then about half of these issues are things that could well be important and might well be things that we want to look at and think about as the organisation grows. These could be issues that we want to report on one day. And those that are in the greeny blue colour, we've agreed, because of the size of the business, because of what it does, because of how it's organised, that there's plenty of things that aren't really important, aren't really material, and you don't really need to be worrying about those. As a result, we score those as okay. You can't really be excellent, you can't really be poor on an issue that doesn't really impact your business, or you don't impact that issue. So kind of by default, those things that you're not going to report on, there's no pressure on you to report on, there's no real relevance for those issues. You just say, okay, that's okay, and we put those to one side. Those issues that you may report on one day are ones that we do look at a little more closely and think about your relative performance. And here you can see these little tags that we put on. It's not all okay. Some of them are okay, but there is also some goods and some excellence across those. This is where we need to be focusing our attention more. Those things that we know we should be reporting on, we will report on next. How do we perform there? Let's hope there's nothing in those high priorities where we're poor. Certainly that's where we would focus our lens if that was the case. And this is where we got to for those 6 top priority issues. Now, as I say, this is the start of the process. Within an hour or 2, we had got to this place where we had got a sense of what the priorities were, and we ordered them. And another couple of hours or so to score. And the scoring is dependent in large part on self-scoring, self-certification, and those results then being discussed and debated. I am looking forward to continuing this work, which will include getting more and more information and more evidence from Flux about these issues and the company's performance, and whether excellent is the right score to assign. We'll be looking for the policies and practices that Lucy has in place that she can describe to us, hopefully publish information about that. That's where we'd like to get to a place where she's sharing this information and it's in the public domain and we can all see it and we can all find out more about the business and perhaps hold the business to account. I'm not entirely sure whether cyber security, for example, is the highest priority issue for Lucy. I'm wondering whether that needs to be downgraded to should or will report on. I'm not sure that she would be achieving these excellent scores on all of those 6 issues. I'm not sure that transition for a low carbon economy is a should or will report on issue. It's as it's currently set, it is very much for big businesses and for manufacturers in particular. It's quite a sort of technical and quite a complex set of issues about mitigation and adaptation and remediation of the effects of climate change and how we change our product and service offerings to things that reduce our impact or increase our adaptation and mitigation. I'm not sure if that's one for Flux in the next sort of 3 or 6 or 12 months or so, and it may be something that we dial down in terms of its importance. But that just gives you some sense of the work that we've done and work that we've done fairly quickly and where we got to and what's next. What's next is getting more information from Lucy, spending more time with her, quizzing her about that, and explaining to her what other businesses are doing on these issues, what comparable businesses are doing, what businesses inside our sector are doing, and getting a sense of, are these the highest priority things? Do we have a good story? Do we have a reliable score? Is the information you provided information that is complete enough for us to give you a score on the scorecard and to publish that information? Those are the steps that we'll be going through next. So those are essentially the slides I wanted to take you all through. Thank you very much for your patience. And I'm looking forward to doing an exercise with looking at business responses to COVID-19. Would it be appropriate to pause and perhaps take a few questions or something like that, Lucy?
Very welcome, Michael, if you'd like to do that. Shall we open up the space for people to explore questions or use the web chat, whichever they might prefer?
Was there any questions that came in? Perhaps we should have encouraged people to do that. If there are any on the chat, or if anybody would like to verbalise them now, I'm very happy to take a question or two.
I have a question. That list of categories, the categories and issues, do you consider those to be exemptive, or are those selected for a particular reason?
Sorry, James, can you ask that again for me, please?
And in that category and all these different issues, do you consider those to be exemptive, or are those chosen for a particular reason?
These are so this is a product of business demand over 10 years or so, essentially. These are the issues that businesses wanted to look at. These are the issues that campaign groups were campaigning on. This is where there was heat and interest, and where there was a role for Responsible 100 to bring people together to create and develop and explore scorecards. That's why it's a funny old list of 8 categories and 58 issues. Sometimes things become less important and less relevant, and they're sort of dialed down and disappear a little bit. Genetically modified organisms, for example, is something that was driving everyone nuts 10 or 15 years ago that you very rarely hear about now. and other things bubble up and become really important issues. So this is a list of the 58 most commonly recurring things, as according to the businesses 550 organisations that we worked with over the last 5 or 6 years. That's where the list came from.
Michael, it's Sophie. Do you expect that list to change at all, given the kind of issues that we are currently facing and the kind of seismic global change that might be expected to come from what we're going through at the moment?
Yeah, I do. I think the great question. I think that it's no doubt that all we can really be certain about is there's going to be change. There's going to be a lot of change, what we have said is that what we want to do is we want to identify all those important issues that affect business and wider society. We want to be examining them all, and we want to be thinking about poor, okay, good, and excellent, and helping businesses to get a sense of where they fit on that scale. If this is an issue that's important for us, and some of the issues that affect KPMG and BAE Systems and legal in general are not going to affect Flux, for example, and vice versa. Not all of these issues are going to affect all businesses. The bigger you are, the broader the sector that you're in. I mean, the insurance companies invest in all the other companies, so they're exposed to pretty much all of these issues. Whichever issues are your top 5 or your top 10 or your top 20 issues, we want to help you work that out. We want to help you work out how you currently perform. There's no doubt that that COVID is going to change things, and that's very much the sort of focus for the next bit. The task that we want to set you is to think about those business responses. So I don't know if you've looked at of course you've looked at the news. I wonder if you've been thinking about the different businesses' responses. Over the weekend, we discovered that there had been a web form created to allow people to record examples of businesses treating their employees well or treating them badly. And I don't know if Katie's on the call, but I had a great conversation with her about how she created that sheet and all the examples that are coming in. Earlier this morning, Sports Direct was in the news for its belligerent insistence that it should be opening its stores despite the lockdown, and they, sportswear was a vital sector to keep going under the circumstances. And I think Mike Ashley and his friends backed down fairly quickly, but that's a good example of a business perhaps responding badly, putting its employees at risk, putting its customers at risk, putting the wider society at risk. So that's how do we respond? How do we behave? I think that a business's culture will have a huge amount to do with how businesses respond. In Katie's form, we've got hundreds of examples, and we'll have a look at that in a couple of minutes. Some of those results. It's a great question, and it brings us on into this exercise. And if that's all right with everybody, time for questions at the end, and please submit additional questions via the chat as we go through. But it does lead us very well, Sophie, to this exercise. And if it's all right with everybody, what I'll do is I will try to get this live. I think I can. What can I do with this? I can click on it. Is it going to open up? Yes, it is. So I need to put this link into the chat so you can all click on it as well. And if I do this, I might be able to. No, I don't want to do that. I want to copy the link, and I'll share that in the chat in a moment. But let me just show you before I set you guys to help us with this. It's following on from Katie's work on businesses' responses to COVID-19 and their impact on the workers. We created additional forms for those that are doing things that positively or negatively impact their customers and wider society. So if you can think of an example like Pret a Manger, a good news story, they are giving free hot drinks to NHS staff, half price food. Plenty of other businesses sort of followed along those lines. Brewdog, Punk Brewery, it stopped brewing beer and started making hand sanitizer for the benefit of wider society. Great news story, great business response. Really excited by that. And I know that Stevenage Football Club was in the news today because it's no longer a football club, it's now a community servant and food bank and support for the elderly and running errands and just repurposing its entire organisation to help with the crisis. Again, I think with the wider community lens, that's a great story. And so that's how this sheet is set up. Please think of an example. If you haven't got an example you can think of, you have a couple of minutes to go and search on the internet and just search on COVID and business response and see what comes up. But if you can think of one and you've got one, decide whether it's about the customer or the worker or the wider community. And I'll make these 3 links available. Just click on the bit.ly. Hopefully this is going to open up another. Have you been able to see the tweet, by the way? I was just bearing in mind I was sharing the presentation. I don't know if I was sharing the web browser as well, or that somehow opened up in the web browser, Lizzie.
Yes, it's there. So we can all see the slide on the presentation where you've got "Let's explore business responses to COVID-19" at the top and the tweet. All
right, and when I click on the tweet, you can't see what happens after that.
No, so you'd need, if you want that to happen, if you go into screen share button, click stop screen share and choose the new window that you want to reveal. You can do it that way, or you can go ahead and copy and paste the link straight into the web chat and we can see them ourselves.
I clicked on the link, and I'll show these links in a moment, for customer. I'll very quickly show you how this works, and then we'll set you all to task for this. What is the business you're thinking about? And you write in the name of the business there. And I'm just going to put example business because that's where my head's at. I don't really use a real example. Is its treatment of customers poor, okay, good, and excellent? Obviously, you'll be able to decide what you think is the best response there. Do you know if it's UK or global? What has it done? So we've said this global business is okay, and in respect to the customer. So we could say it's good because it's giving discounted products to staff, for example. You can put the link to the newspaper article or the tweet, or whatever your source is, or just personal testimony if that's what it is. There is no link, and indicate what sector it's in and submit. That's all we want you to do. And what will happen on the next screen is that say, thanks, you have submitted, we've got that recorded, and it will also give you the link to open up the results sheet and see what else is being provided there. So if that makes sense, please go ahead as soon as I've shared the link. And I will stop sharing. I will go back to chat, and I will paste in the link to the tweet. So hopefully you can all click on the link. You can go to Twitter and Responsible 100's post by clicking this link, and open up your own web browsers, and you'll see there's 3 different ways that you can go in terms of how businesses are treating their customers, their employees, or the wider community, by clicking the bit.ly links, and please provide your submissions. Lucy.
Hi, I Somebody's writing, hi Lucy, on the web chat. I've clicked that. For some reason I can't actually open up another window. I don't know if that's because I'm the one that's recording the presentation, possibly.
All right.
What I will do actually is I'll just pause the recording and see if that allows me to do it.
Copy the bit.lys into the chat as well. Has there anybody else been able to open up the tweet? So I've dropped off the wider community link. The bit.ly's fallen off there. Let me see if I can pull that up. Jay Rice submitted their response. Jay, please submit another one. And please also tell me where you submitted. Was it customers or wider community or employees? And then we can have a look at what's coming in.
Also, Michael, I've just seen Sophie's said that she can't access. I wonder if, so it's not a problem, Sophie, if you can't manage it, we can review some of the other ones and we'll be able to bring it up on Michael's screen in a moment.
No, it's no problem.
Well, I know there's a few coming there. I'm just going to get all the links for the list so we can all see those. Please think about examples that you can add if you've sent one already. Think about another one, and if you've run out of examples to submit, then we'll be looking at the results in a couple of minutes. And if you've got trouble opening up a browser for any reason, maybe have a look at that, see if you can get your browser open. I'm going to share the links to the repositories of all the submissions so we can look at what's coming.
Just one thing, Michael, I was just wondering, it's obviously all anonymous, isn't it? So people don't need to worry if they're sharing something about their organisation where they work, or indeed somewhere where they are maybe a member of that institution or something like that.
Yeah, it's all anonymous. We're not asking for your name or your email address. It's not recorded in the sheet, as you'll see. And if you have submitted, then you will be able to see the results sheet.
I picked the other one, the one that it was supposed to respond to the workers. That was correct, right? So coronavirus worker responses, or is that the wrong one?
I'm not sure if I can work it out for you.
I'll put in both, if that's okay.
The forms say worker or customer or wider community right at the top.
Is that UK business coronavirus responses impact on the community?
Yeah, so that's the wider community, wider society. Yeah, and the other two are workers and customer.
Let's go with that then.
Which one do you want to start with, Michael? Should we open one of them up on your screen so we're looking at the same one?
Yeah. So this is the. I need to get the links for the other two forms, but I've got the link for community, and I'll share that on the chat so people can go into that while I get the links together for the other two.
Great, cool. How are you getting on, Michael?
That's community, that's customer, and one more to go. And I'm sadly polluting these forms with blah, 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 because I'm not able to multitask any better. We'll be able to delete them. Yes, we will be able to delete them and keep them full of good information instead of example information. So just give me another moment and I will find the link to the workers.
Great. And I think, as Michael's already said, it's really hopefully a great tool that you can refer back to as well and continue to populate through this period of time, really. And Responsible 100 will be creating, as Michael said, a scorecard around what these what the criteria is, what the business policies and practices are for poor, okay, good and excellent with regards to an epidemic such as this. And we will be sure to share that as well as once it's in development and being created. The anticipation is building. I'm so excited, interested and curious to see what people are sharing.
Another minute, please. Sorry about the delay, finding the last link.
I realised I was on mute. I made a suggestion, then I said, don't worry. So I'll leave you for another moment, Michael.
Yeah, the second, the best to last. This is Katie's document. I'll just label it and send it again.
There's quite a few to that one, isn't there?
Full of examples. You might want to go up to the menu under where it says File, Edit, View, Insert. For those not familiar with Google Docs, you can click next to it 100%, click to 75% perhaps, and just reduce the size of the font because there's so much information in here. The form submission is the second worksheet, and you can see that people were submitting here from the 20th of March. View Cinema, Britannia Hotels, Parkinson's UK, Sky, Wilco were the first businesses that were suggested.
Michael, sorry to stop you in your flow. If anybody's like me and can't access their web browser, do you mind switching your screen and bringing that up for us all to see?
Yeah.
Thanks. We could also say that you are personally experiencing flux between your two computers, that you're rejigging in between the two quite cleverly.
Yeah. Can you see my browser? This is the form for customer.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, somebody was asking a question or saying something. Please butt in if you'd like to. So this is the results that we've got for customer responses. So thank you very much. Mine was example biz, and then since then you've put in another sort of 8 or 9 examples. Fantastic, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, Britannia Hotels dismissed staff in a brutal manner. Poor, no doubt. Zara making scrubs for hospitals, a bit like Brewdog making their hand sanitizer. Zara's making equipment for hospitals, so is LVMH. Is that what it says? No, LVMH is L'Oreal. It's doing something similar to Brewdog, and it's making hand sanitizer instead of its perfume. Gary Neville has won lots of plaudits for opening up his hotels. So it is a fantastic example. Thanks very much indeed. We've got an array of scores. We've got good and excellent and poor, actually. We don't have anything other than an example that was okay. And these are fantastic. This is the sort of building blocks for our scorecard for business response. In terms of how they're treating their customers, business response to COVID-19, and that's a great start. Fantastic, thank you very much. This is what we've got for impact on the community. And earlier today, Lucy put the Conduit in there. She was at Conduit, I think, or was recently. I know there's a workspaces, work-life and Conduit that you use. Mm-hmm. It would be good to discuss what you found at work life, actually, because you scored that as okay, and I was wondering whether that was okay or whether it was poor. But let's look at the other examples. Wetherspoons, poor, undoubtedly. Unbelievable what's been said by the owner and his encouragement that staff leave the company and join Tesco's. I think he's encouraged his staff to do. It's just unbelievable. Aircraft carrier, John Wicks it's in Nova, and Pets at Home have all got recorded responses. That's fantastic. Look forward to playing around with those. And this is the one that's been live for a number of days. As I said, that Katie has put together, and this has now got 207 different submissions to it. I don't know whether this work-life submission is you, Lucy. I know you were talking about work-life earlier. I don't know if you can recognise any of these that you put in yourselves in the last couple of minutes, but thank you very much, everybody, for putting this information in here, giving us these examples to play with, and giving us the opportunity to create a new set of scorecards. Would anybody like to tell us anything further about any of the submissions that they've made, and whether they've scored it correctly? Perhaps, if you're confident that you found excellent examples, or you're thinking maybe it's good or maybe it's just okay, be very happy to open up to the floor and hear what people have to say about what they've provided.
Thanks, Michael. Hopefully that hopefully one or two people might be keen to be volunteers. If not, I can always share a little bit more about one of the other ones that I've entered.
So, Michael, one thing that strikes me is a lot of these are perceptions of what is good, and most of the decisions that leaders need to make are much more complex than and have a lot of the values that, or the different sustainable business drivers, or all of those 58 things. Most decisions that they're having to make in this current environment have a number of those different factors pulling against each other. So, you know, a lot of the decisions that business leaders are having to make are not quite as simple as what the press portray, or what the perception might be, or what any single view may in reality have the overall impact. So even when you look at those three different spreadsheets that you set out, what might be right for the customer is not right for the staff or for broader society, and they often come in conflict. So how do you kind of deal with that complexity?
Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure if all of those 58 issues are at play with this. I spent some time having a look, and I felt those three categories, those three lenses were particularly useful. So businesses are under incredible strain and huge uncertainty. It's always been difficult to be in business and succeed in business, and as I said earlier in the presentation, it's never been more difficult now. For some businesses, revenue has completely dried up, without knowing how much money, if any money, that we'll have as a business, knowing what to do next is kind of impossible. I think, nonetheless, it is possible to say, in terms of how that business treated its workforce, this is how I feel about it. And that's all we're really doing, is providing the opportunity for people to express how they feel about individual examples of what's happened.
Okay. And is that, in your experience, people's feeling for it usually aligned with what really is sort of on a sustainable basis, the kind of ethically correct thing to do?
Well, the great thing about the round tables was bringing what you think of the sort of two sides together and seeing if they're going to take a position, which often the case that the business says the business is business is business, and it's a sort of Friedman sort of ideology. Sometimes you don't know how complex or difficult this is, what sort of decisions we've got to make, and what we're balancing. And businesses do say that, and they do get away with it. They're not challenged. But I don't think that's quite the same these days, and it's been changing in the 18 years I've been working in this space. And in a round table, it's actually not possible to do that. If you've got expert people that come from a different position and can challenge and can deny you the opportunity to just say, look, this is too complex, you don't understand. And on something that's really complicated like tax, it does get really technical, and the scorecard for tax is full of deferred assets and deferred tax liabilities. It's really, I've got a finance and economics degree, and I really did not enjoy getting into the technical detail there. But what we found was that it's possible for us all to use language that everybody understands, and it's possible for people to make the case that for excellent on tax transparency, you set the bar too high. It's simply not possible for any business that's here, or any business out there in the world, or any business that we can imagine, to achieve excellent for this reason and this reason and this reason. And often it's the case that that person will persuade everybody else around the table, irrespective of where they come from. So what I'm trying to explain is the round table and the process is about putting examples forward and fitting them into this pattern, and fitting them into this understanding, and debating what's acceptable and what is not. I do appreciate that Wetherspoons is worried about its business because it can't open its pubs and it's not trading. But I can still be fairly confident that the boss saying that he's not telling any of his tens of thousands of employees when they're going to get paid, if ever, despite the government stepping in with 80%, and telling them to go and get a job at Tesco's instead, is to my mind appalling. And I think if we were in the room with that individual, that company, others from that sector, people from trade unions, we work with the Work Foundation on a number of occasions for sort of employer-related things. It would be for the business to defend itself and to explain why it had to do those things. So we're trying hard to break all these things down into simple individual components that understand the complexity, use language that is everyday and non-technical language, so that we can all understand what's going on and we can take a view. And that's really what we're seeking to do here. What are the examples that people see, and how do they fit into the scale of poor, okay, good, and excellent? And then we go out and then we test it and we put it to businesses and say, is this a reasonable assessment of this issue? Can you identify how you perform on this scale? If what you're doing is what we have considered to be poor, would it be fair for us to say that the scorecard is good, the scorecard is correct, and you are poor? Or do you think the scorecard is not well informed, or doesn't understand some complexity, or doesn't understand some issues that we haven't yet factored in, and we should do that and recalibrate the scorecard and then bring it back? So it's a process of ongoing development and improvement, and bringing as many examples in as we can, and getting as detailed and a complete picture of what's going on out there. And we have been able to break these issues down into these individual things. I mentioned that transition to
so how would
and that's because it's got so many different things in it, and it's difficult for the scorecard didn't work particularly well. It probably needs rewriting. We probably need to narrow things down a little bit. But our experience is that you can break down into individual issues and to individual actions, and you can take a view as to whether that's poor, okay, good, and excellent. And you can then make your case when you're debating with your peers or your critical friends or whoever it is, that this is where they fit in your scorecard, in your opinion. And we've been able to build consensus around poor, okay, good, and excellent with these diverse groups. So I appreciate where you're coming from, but what I say is it is possible to get to a narrow enough set of issues and define those different standards of behaviour.
So with what Primark have done in stopping production, knowing that they are not able to sell it, where would you place that as positive because of the environmental impact, negative because of the impact on people who are now not able to sort of fulfill their sort of they're not able to pay their people because they now have a whole lot of stuff that's made but not consigned, so hasn't been fulfilled. Where do you see that on the sort of ethical space?
I'm not sure that's. I think there will be a sort of lesser impact there on the customer really than the employee. I'm thinking perhaps has a lesser impact on the wider community in the way that putting your workers at risk and then putting the wider community at risk because you're increasing the risk of infection by demanding people come to work. That was the lens we're thinking about community impact up to this point. If you're thinking about business planning, I think that's perhaps outside of the scope of workers and customers and wider community. But I'd love to debate it with you. I'd love to discuss it with you. I don't know which category and which issue this would be, but I'd love to sort of think it through with you. What do you know about Primark in particular? Has it come out and said?
No, I mean it was just in the press over the weekend that they have stopped all their production. They don't have an online distribution network, so they've stopped all the production, which has for an organisation that size has an impact globally. And then because they're such a big buyer, will have a huge knock-on effect. And then there's all sorts of sort of knock-on effects to things that have already been shipped, that have already been created. So there's a whole lot of waste, but then on the other side, it stops a lot of waste that they're not going to have shops open to sell. And so there's sort of pros and cons for continuing or not continuing.
Yeah, and it's not just Primark, right? It's all everybody in that sector, and it's across all sectors as well. It's immensely. I would say that I mean, you know, you asked, is this going to open up a new categories? And I think really it is going to open up new categories. I think in the first few weeks of this hitting, we can see good and we can see poor, okay, good, excellent practice in terms of how businesses are doing things in respect to these three groups. And we, you know, I agree with you. That's not the full picture. That's not every issue considered, and we're going to have to think perhaps about new issues that we might want to look at where there is. It's useful for us to explore that and think about poor, okay, good, and excellent to give businesses some sense of, you know, to give them something to test against. If there's benefit in doing that, if there's a demand for us to put additional scorecards together, then we'd be very happy to do that. And yeah, this is complexity of and unknowns of sort we haven't really come across before.
I wonder whether it's also sharing, as much as that's a brilliant question, Sophie, and thank you for highlighting actually the complexity of this stuff. As much as we've tried to create, I suppose, or Michael has tried to create a simple-ish task that we can all kind of contribute to, there is such a complexity to all of this work, which Michael is not, but he's very much used to. And to complete each scorecard takes a number of different roundtables, so there is a lot of complexity that is debated amongst all of those before a scorecard is created to the point where it is then used within the assessment tool which Responsible 100 have online, which we can all access and have a go with. But yeah, it's a really good point to highlight that there are conflicting factors amongst some of this stuff. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I wonder, in the interest of time and everyone's evenings, as much as I personally would love to stay on this call a lot longer and explore more, I wonder, Michael, do you want to bring us back to how we can kind of keep in touch with you and continue to access more? I'm just bringing up, if it's the screen share might be working, if you want to maybe take us through a couple of these links so we know how we can, well, I know how I'm going to stay in touch, but
yeah, so perhaps I can put those into the chat so that people can click on those links, but we can also put them into a follow-up email, I suggest, and make it easy to be in touch and stay in touch. Yeah, there are these the kind of usual with the LinkedIn and the Twitter. We have a newsletter. Signing up for the newsletter also gives you the opportunity to request a free assessment, and effectively a taster of some of this and some of the first steps that we illustrated in what we've done with Flux. We can do a number of those things fairly quickly and for free, and we're happy to do that. So I'm very happy to send the links. And typically I'm failing to multitask and to talk sensibly and find the right links and share the right links in chat at the same time. So please let me do that after the call. And just to sort of come to a close, I think we'll accept that there are challenges, technical challenges, and some issues are new and developing all the time. And we really don't know what's up, what's down with some of the COVID stuff. But nonetheless, I think what we found over the years is there are lots of businesses that do want to be as responsible as they can be, and they do want to increase their commitment and their effort and be more responsible, and they would happily do that if they are recognised and rewarded and enabled to do that and to compete in a race to the top rather than a race to the bottom. They're persuaded that Extinction Rebellion is right and we're on a dreadful trajectory and we need to get off it and they need to be part of that transition. What we were suggesting, what we have suggested, and what we will continue to suggest, and what we might do in a more political way going forward is saying, here is a good way to do it. Let's work out all those issues that are important and impact your business and wider society, and let's work out how you currently perform on those issues. And let's identify where you need to invest your precious and finite resources to improve your performance because being poor on some of these critical issues is just hurting people and planet in a way that's not sensible or bearable, and can be changed and can be fixed. So if we find the bottom for COVID and we come out the other side, and of course we expect to do that, we have no idea when, will we be rushing to get back to business as usual? I'm sure normality will something will crave in all sorts of ways. For business though, I'm sure the future is about working out how to best serve people and planet, as well as deliver the products and services at the right price and quality. How do you contribute? How are you net positive? How are you competing in the race to the top? How are you contributing? We'd like to work with those businesses that want to explore that, and part of that exploration to be, what are the issues that matter most to our business now? How do we currently perform? How do we improve? We're happy to help any business to do that, and we're very glad to share the information that businesses provide to us. If they're willing to be transparent and accountable as well, we're looking forward to sharing more of that information and identifying those businesses that say, you know what, this is a smart way to do responsibility. The glossy CSR report is dead, and a real, meaningful, tangible, effective and relevant means of being responsible is needed, and Responsible 100 is part of the answer to that. That's what I'm hoping. That's what we've been hoping for a long time, that we work with those businesses. In the last year, things have got a little bit more focused and critical, and then the last few weeks, even more so. So if those are the sort of businesses that you like to succeed, or you're part of, or you're working in an NGO or campaign group or elsewhere where you're encouraging best responsible practice and encouraging businesses to pursue that as part of their business success, then please stay in touch, and please get on the newsletter, on the Twitter, or on the LinkedIn, swap emails, let's have a conversation, take the instant assessment. We'd love to work with you.
Thank you so much, Michael. I am just clicking through to share that very quickly before we wrap up. There is an opportunity, much like Michael has this evening, to bring his brilliant idea forward with Responsible 100, which is not simply an idea, of course, it's a business. But to bring that forward and to share it as a business for good platform that can be expanded on, and together we can partner on to realise greater impact. That's really the opportunity he's taken this evening to share with you. And I hope you've enjoyed understanding a bit more about what Flux and Responsible 100 have been doing, but more broadly what Responsible 100 stands for and continues to provoke the industry to move towards. So as I say, there's this opportunity, if you would like to host a meetup with Flux in the future. All you need is one of two things. It can either be a problem that you see with business today that you want to highlight, expand, discuss, and collectively ideate on. We will continue to explore different ways in which we can create participating aspects to webinars in the short to medium term, but in person, running creative thinking exercises, design thinking exercises, brainstorms and breakouts would be much more possible in the venue that we had in mind to do it physically. So down the line we'll revert to that as our first option. And of course the second option is to bring a business for good idea to explore. So let me know. There's a how to host guide, which is a living document, which we'll be sure to update with learnings from this one, which is our first one. And finally, there is the opportunity to access this again, should you want to share it with somebody else, experience it again, look back at some of the things that Michael has been sharing, and perhaps visit other insights that we share on the Flux website. So all you need to do is go to fluxfutures.com/insight if you want to explore some more of those tools. They are open source. That's part of our civic responsibility, to invest and build insights for others to experience and enjoy. And the next meetup is already in the diary for Thursday the 28th of May, which is likely to be virtual again, or will be virtual again. This time we'll be working with Rob, who's actually on the call. I don't know if you want to say hi, Rob. Rob works he's the founder of Some Kind, which is really where he does responsible business storytelling and coaching. And he's already been working with Flux in the past and supports us with our coaching needs beyond those that the immediate team can deliver. So he will be working with me to build some content for us on that particular meetup. And apart from anything else, I think if you have questions or want to reach out to me, please do. And I hope it's brought some entertainment, some interest to your evening while you're otherwise being isolated. It's been a pleasure to have you join us, and I'm really looking forward to reviewing with Michael the different things that have come through on those Google Sheets. So if there's not anything else anybody would like to share, then we're done. And thank you very much indeed.
Thank you ever so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Looking forward to putting a draft scorecard together and sending it out and seeing what that looks like, seeing what you think. Thank you ever so much for participating, everybody. And Lucy, you continue to be fantastic and amazing and great to work with. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.